So it seems to me that there's two strategies right now. One is basically learn to live in a sea of garbage, or swim with the sharks, or whatever you want to call that. And the other is somehow we're going to find a foothold and build a solid castle on top of it.
Right. It's clear that most people are consumers of technology don't really care about security because they don't put their money where their mouth is. They may complain about it, but they don't buy that way, with the exception of maybe the government and financial institutions. So there's no real reason for software companies and technology companies to care about security.
Let me express this thought here that for many years now, whenever I give my lecture on the state of security to my students, or in an invited talk somewhere or similar forum, we do have some successes, and we generally tend to play up the bad stuff and focus on, my gosh.
What's your favorite success?
My favorite success is the automatic teller machine network. I think that's a very secure network. That's not very secure, but it is secure enough.
You haven't seen Ross Anderson's latest?
Exactly. I don't, but see, it's not Ross Anderson that I'm concerned about. It's the average public and their experience. Because whenever I've asked this question, how are people comfortable with the ATM network? Do they use it? And I've asked this in international venues, I've asked this in domestic venues, and I have yet to hear anybody,
I use it, there's no question about that.
Correct. So we all use it, we are comfortable with it. It has some loss control. There's some throttling on how much money you can get out of it. And yet somehow magically, even when I walk up to a ATM machine in some unknown country, unknown city, it gets me money from it.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean there aren't security problems in the ATM machine. There have been several, as Carl pointed out, recently that have been big problems. The reality is there are millions of security problems in the software we use every day waiting to be exploited. And,
but John,
the reality of it is that most of them won't be exploited, but we're willing. Most of us are willing.
You see, we as professionals, we are already. I think we have a basic axiom in security that you're never going to be 100% secure.
Sure.
And at the same time, there is a thinking in the security community that if it's not 100%, let's try to make it 99 or 99.5.
Are we really at 99 or 95? Are we accepting?
We don't even need to be at 99. That's my real point.
My concern is, are we accepting a standard of engineering in computing that's way lower than we accept, say, in civil engineering?
I think it's probably too expensive to set the bar that much higher than where we are right now. I mean, to train everybody up on the software engineering side and to actually do
John, but even that would not fix the problem. Even if you train everybody in software security, that wouldn't solve the problem.
I'd say we're nowhere near 100%. We're not at 90%. We're at 10%, and the saving grace is that most of these security problems aren't being found.
So we're going to be looking for our new issue on living within security.
In the ATM network, we are not at 10%. That I can tell.
Yeah.
Otherwise it would not be deployed on such a global scale.
Well,
it would not be successful.
But I think there are
billions of.
There are many unexploited vulnerabilities, and the question that comes up is how much of a threat is there against those vulnerabilities? We're seeing that in this discussion of Stuxnet that we're having now.
Right.
And the question is, who has the incentive to exploit those vulnerabilities, and how damaging could that be? And it seems as though in some cases it could be extremely damaging, but maybe nobody's going to exploit them. Are we willing to live with that?
I don't think we have a choice. We live with that in every other aspect of human society. We are going to break up today and go to our different directions. Carl is headed to the airport. I am headed for a dinner with the.
I don't get to go to the dinner.
Well, you're going away, or you guys come with me. I'll take you to the dinner. But the point is, just getting in the car is probably more risky than certainly withdrawing money from an ATM.
But speaking of the dinner, I think we have in our kitchens lots of ingredients, and we cook meals, and we don't poison ourselves usually. Whereas I think in the programming world, we offer things to people. If people want to program their cell phone or their own personal computer, they're very likely to do something that could get them in a lot of trouble.
Most people actually that have a security incident are personally responsible. It's not actually the flaws in the software. It's that they downloaded and ran something that was...
They were expected to try to distinguish something that was safe to download versus something that wasn't. And that's something that you really, it's a lot to ask of someone.
Yeah, absolutely. And another, going back to your point though, Ravi, bank networks, I agree, they're more secure than the average code written because financial institutions care a lot more about it, but they're nowhere near 100% secure, and it's not only is it impossible to measure, but I'd say that security through obscurity, even though it's a bad word and a bad term in the security community, it's extraordinarily important. The fact that very few people have access to the source code or even the binary code makes it extremely difficult to find the security problems, whereas with a Microsoft Office, you may not have the source code, but you can reverse engineer it and find problems that way. That's one of the potential values of the cloud model. There are a lot of security risks there, but at least if you can kind of keep people away from...
So Ravi, is your standard talk unremittingly optimistic?
Okay, it's more optimistic than pessimistic because I believe that what the situation we are seeing with cyber insecurity is not that different than we have seen with other technologies. And on a mass consumer scale, I think we are very close to finding reasonably good solutions. So if you do your online banking, you do online e-commerce, there is some experience.
Are you more or less comfortable with online banking now than you were 5 years ago?
Not much difference.
Yeah,
to be quite frank, not much difference.
And
I'm actually more nervous about it.
So look, the reasonable solutions though aren't technical solutions. They're the fact that there's liability coverage by the financial institutions. I've always been willing to use my credit card online, even without SSL or any other.
Yeah, but that doesn't. You're not protected with the banks. You're protected with a credit card.
Well, right. Well,
with the banks, it's mostly just the good practice of the banks to keep their consumers that they kind of, so far, historically, empirically, in the US, the banks have been reasonably good at making you whole. Now, it's not, you may have a bad bank who will try to kind of stick it to you, but that bank is likely to get out of business for other reasons because their whole attitude is wrong. The banks are moving you to online because it gives them tremendous savings. They have all the incentive to push you into online. And the extra security loss that they are incurring is still minuscule compared to the productivity.
But the risk of identity theft and if someone else manages to get
well,
my
to address that issue, so when we get into a car, maybe you're bad luck today and you're the one who's going to be one of the several thousand killed on a weekly basis, right? I mean, that is the number of casualties we have on our network today, a highway network. And, people have accepted that, they've kind of absorbed it, and, we take that risk every time we get into a car.
We've done some things about it. We have
improved
cars, we have,
Yeah, so the numbers have improved over the years, and there's more safety factors we are building. So likewise, I think for consumer online cybersecurity, we are headed towards a pretty reasonably safe kind of situation. And if it's your bad luck that day to be caught, tough luck. We can do the H1N1 and this and that, but if you're going to catch the flu, you're going to catch it. So there's some element of luck that is going to always be involved. And as a society, we can only reduce that. Now, if you change the discussion to sort of national level cybersecurity and what we are facing in potential cyber war, I mean, over there, the situation, I believe, is pretty scary. Because, the fact that classified military networks have now been admitted to be penetrated by relatively straightforward techniques.
Sure.
A thumb drive, for God's sake.
So this comes back to my question about, are we really accepting a standard of engineering that we shouldn't, that we should actually provide some higher engineering standards for these systems?
Yeah, I think we need to distinguish sort of the micro security calculations that a bank has to make when it provides online banking services and the macro security calculations that a nation has to make.
A bank is an important institution, and the financial resources are very important, but they have a great benefit that you can count them. And when it's theft of information or modification of a control system, it's much harder to make that accounting. You can't tell at the end of the day if you're more vulnerable than you were the day before, or if you've lost things. And that seems to be a big challenge.
So, bottom line is I'm generally optimistic, especially at the retail consumer level. So,
I mean, I don't think that it's any different for the consumer than it was a few years ago. If they have a security problem, it's likely they infected themselves somehow by downloading the wrong screensaver or whatever.
And if it's an identity theft thing,
I don't buy that. Blaming the victim, I don't buy that.
well, I'm not blaming the victim.
Okay.
I think it's just a reality.
It's like Toyota saying that our cars got out of control because the drivers didn't know what to do in that situation.
So you're not blaming them, but you're saying that's the likely cause.
That's the cause most of the time. And when you look at situations where identity theft by somebody stealing credit card numbers on the internet, well, it's much easier to steal credit card numbers and do identity theft in the real world. You put yourself at risk every time you run your credit card at a restaurant, and that was already an acceptable level of risk. So the internet didn't really kind of increase the risk of identity theft
makes
too much.
Mass thefts possible, or more possible.
But in reality, you look at the numbers that the data privacy rights, so whatever that organization's name is, they publish on lost records. Well, most of them aren't stolen by people who want to resell them. Most of it is just lost data. It's not actually.
It's also the fact that the criminals have a sort of bottleneck or a throttle in how much they can exploit. So they have access to many more credit card numbers than they can actually exploit. And the likelihood is that my credit card number is out there somewhere, one of my credit card numbers. And the likelihood that it will actually get used, there's some safety in numbers. There's only so many people. I mean, if there are a bunch of pickpockets in a crowd, there's only so many people who are going to get pickpocketed at the end of the day. So likewise,
You seem to be saying, though, your pocket's already been picked multiple times.
It has.
Many pockets have been picked that you're.
Well, they haven't got around to exploiting it. There is an exploitation bottleneck.
Sounds like time to cancel your credit cards.
I don't know that that's...
You can change your credit card number whenever you feel like it. Just like you can change your password. You can change your credit card number every 6 months.
Robbie,
if you want to go through that.
I'm actually more optimistic than you are.
Okay.
Because the over the past 5 years in banks and with the PCI standard in particular, the regulations on how you use and store credit card information, all the controls that you have to have in place have gotten really good. Plus you've got state laws all around the US that force disclosure if there might have been an incident. And it's been several years. I've got like 8 credit cards, and it's been years since I had one get its number changed because of a breach of any kind.
But still, one of the most publicized and high volume breaches was in a company that was PCI certified.
Yeah, of course.
And it existed for several months. It existed not for a day or 2 months.
Right, but when they
that breach was carried out over months.
They were forced to notify anyone who might have been affected, which was basically.
I understand, but
the real incentive there is that company basically went out of business, right?
That's right.
So that is a message to other companies, but yeah, and that was really a technical breach, right? That was not a.
That's right.